What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. Today, I'm going to do a video, and I'm thinking I might have to do a couple of these, right? But this one is on America's most hated gang. And you see the thumbnail. You see the title. I think by far America's most sensationalized gang is MS13. When we go back to Donald Trump's first run for presidency and his presidency, there was a lot of talk about MS13. Prior to his presidency, we've heard a lot of talk about MS13. And it's almost like that is the main gang, I'm going to put it in air quotes, the main gang that a lot of politicians like to bring up. So, MS Mara Salvatrucha started in California in the 1980s. They were fleeing their country because their country was involved in a revolution. And I know some of the guys that got here right when it started. I was in prison with them. And I remember one in particular. He said that when he came over, and they were in Hollywood, and his homeboys told him, hey, trip out on this. We're going to take you gangbanging. You ready to go? And he was like, what's gangbanging? And they said, get in the car. We're going to show you. And he said that they went into a rival neighborhood, and they just started getting off with their guns. Boom, 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 boom. And I remember the dude telling me, and we were in Corcoran Shoe when we were having this conversation. And I remember him telling me, man, Holmes, that was fun. He goes, I remember because, he goes, in our country, we were fighting the government. Right here, we weren't fighting an army. We were just fighting other dudes. And I will say this. I don't know about nowadays, but I could tell you, like in the 80s and 90s, when you ran into a dude from MS, they didn't get arrested for 1 or 2 or 3 murders. When those guys were getting busted, they were getting picked up for a lot. The guy that I'm telling you about right now, he had told me that they picked him up for 8, and he got found guilty of 1. And that's a whole different story. I may have even told that story before in another video. But I want you guys to know the evolution of that gang is a trip, because initially they were MS stoners. They had long hair like rockers. They would wear like Metallica shirts and Iron Maiden shirts, and they weren't the average what you would call cholo. And I remember being in the California Youth Authority with these guys, and they did not run with the Southerners. They tried to run by themselves. And they would say, we ain't Mexican. We don't have nothing to do with your guys' stuff. And I remember, and I've told this story, but I'll reiterate it here. I remember there were times when we would tell them, like, we would laugh at them, and we'd tell them, okay, that's feed, man. You guys, that's cool. You guys don't have to kick it with us. Do your own thing. Be in your own corner. But when you go up north and them northerners get at you, you guys are from LA County, eh? They're not going to want to hear that I ain't Mexican stuff, and you're going to find out the hard way. And they were like, nah, hell nah. We'll let them know. We don't mess. We're not part of you guys, this and that. Again, this is when they were MS stoners. And I remember one in particular, Yogi. Shout out to Yogi. he left. He got kicked out of Paso Robles, the YA facility that we were at together, and he got sent to Preston. He had the long hair, you know. He looked like a rocker. He went up there, and I believe, if I remember the number correctly, there were 5 Southerners. Well, let me take that back. There were 4 Southerners in that unit and Yogi. And the Northerners decided that's too many, and they moved. In the middle of the night, they moved. And they got on Yogi. They got on everybody, but they got on Yogi, and they razor bladed his face up. And 2 of the Southerners fought their way to him because they knew if they don't help him, he was going to get taken out. They fought their way to him, stood with him between their feet, and they stood back to back, and they were just fighting. They were getting hit with razors too, but they saved his life. I remember still being in Paso Robles, and we heard about it. Hey, Holmes. And it was a couple of dudes from MS on my unit. They were like, hey, Holmes, remember my homeboy Yogi? Yeah. And they ran us down, and we told you guys. And at that point, they started kicking it with us more. And then I ran into Yogi later. He had a bald head. He was dressed like a Southerner. And he said, hey, I learned my lesson. Eh? And I told him, we told you. But anyways, then there were some things that occurred on the streets in LA in 1992. And that's when MS dropped the stoners part and added the 13. In California, in Southern California, MS functions or has functioned the same as all barrios in Southern California. There's certain protocols, you could call them or whatever, that are expected. But when you have people coming from El Salvador or any of the Central American countries that are MS members, and they come over and they relocate to other parts of the country, they're not functioning under the same protocols. And that's when you have heard, like when there's some sensational cases that we've heard about, right? MS people, allegedly dudes from MS hacking people to pieces with machetes and stuff like that. You don't really ever hear about that ever in California. That's the guys that came over and relocated somewhere else, and they're functioning under the way that they had functioned when they were in their home country, whatever country it is, because MS is huge. It's in, I don't know how many states in the United States, and it's in, I believe, like 4 or 5 countries. This is a transnational group. But I have to say that, like everything, not everyone is the same. I met a lot of dudes that were really cool dudes from MS. And obviously those are the ones from California that I met. And they committed a lot of acts of extreme violence. They had to. When you're trying to settle a gang in a new location where there's other barrios, you have to be extremely violent in order to survive. And these dudes, because of their nationality, they all stuck together. They did their thing. But I think the majority of what we hear about and what the politicians are talking about is the guys that probably were never in California. They came over from another country and they brought that version of that gang with them. It is an ugly track record that they have across the United States, other parts of the United States outside of California. But I wanted to just give my 2 cents, at least on this group. I may do There's a couple other groups I'm thinking about doing. Let me know in the comment section if you want me to continue with this. And I can talk about my interactions with these people, my views. You know, gangbanging is not the same now as it was 30 years ago. It's a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's unfortunate that they still exist. Gangs still exist in this time. It's unfortunate. People are still losing their lives, and that's unfortunate. Fortunately, not as many people are involved, and not as many people are losing their lives. And that's why I do what I do. Try to shed light while also remaining respectful. And just let people know there's a better way, man. There really is. That's my video for today, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out of here.